Welcome to Our Justice Journey, a podcast designed to educate others on how to fight for social justice as youth and beyond. Today we'll be interviewing social justice warrior Hodari Davis. Hodari Davis is a partner at Edutainment for Equity and the artistic director of E4E Arts, which includes the award-winning youth performance ensemble Young, Gifted, and Black. Prior to joining Entertainment for Equity, Hodari served as the National Program Director for Youth Speaks for 12 years and was the executive producer of the Brave New Voices International Youth Poetry Festival. He was also the executive producer and creative director of the Life is Living Community Development Campaign and the Bigger Picture Project. He is currently a graduate student researcher at the Transformative Justice and Education Center at UC Davis, where he attends as a doctoral student in the School of Education. For the past 3 years, Hodari has been a fellow at the Institute for the Future, and most recently became a faculty member teaching foresight on behalf of the organization. Hodari is a father of 5 and lives in Oakland, California. In today's podcast, Hodari Davis is going to share his perspectives on teaching, learning, and social transformation. He is an equity warrior, and we are so honored to have him here today. So our first question is, throughout your career, a lot of your work has been done through nonprofits and has a theme that correlates with the arts. Was there a particular reason you went on that pathway to change?
Well, I started as a high school teacher, so I think um, teaching and serving in Berkeley Unified, I always felt like my classroom was too small, or the change that I could make over time was too gradual. And even though during the time that I was at Berkeley High, I probably saw um, upwards of 1,200 students a year, it still never felt like I was moving the needle as much as I wanted to. And so part of what drove me to the nonprofit world and the jobs that I had was just to have larger classrooms, essentially larger spaces to impact more change for more people rather than just in the scope of 50 minutes a day in a classroom.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, everything that I have done in my career goes back to the classroom. Like uh, in the end, the foundation of all the work that I've done in any nonprofit or wherever I've worked has been what I learned as a classroom teacher. And so the fact that I started doing that when I was 21 years old, that I was a full-time teacher at Berkeley High when I was 22 years old. Um, and just being so young doing that work, it just laid the foundation for me understanding the relationship between pedagogy and practice, and like that you could teach somebody something and they can manifest it in the world, and that you could be part of the process of learning something and could make lasting and transformative change. So, but it definitely all started in the classroom for me.
Yeah, so to go off that, like, would you say looking back, like, even though you said you went into nonprofits to you have like a bigger classroom to make a bigger impact, would looking back still, happy that you went into the classroom first, because then it kind of impacted, you know, what your pedagogy, like you said, and what you became?
I mean, I don't want to say that that was the only thing that drove me away from the classroom. There were a lot of other factors. Um, if I had the ability to control those other factors, I probably would have stayed in the classroom and never gone to the nonprofit. So one of those uh, main factors was that it was hard to support a family on a teacher's salary, um, and it was difficult for me to kind of support the dreams of my wife at the time and of my children on with such a low income. So I had to find ways to make more money. Um, that was one big motivation, and I think another was just kind of the politics of seeing the same kind of systems operate over and over and over again. And um, you can, my classroom could be an oasis in a sense from the desert that existed within the school of consciousness and compassion, culture, etc. and even other teachers who are like-minded like me, we could coalesce and find ways to collaborate and create spaces for people to celebrate justice and feel like they could be transformed. But overall, the system was still the system. You know, people were still living in segregated communities. There were still disparities in terms of achievement, in terms of attendance, in terms of discipline policies. You know, I had students who had to deal with gangs, had to deal with homelessness, had to deal with drugs, had to deal with suicide. And how can I address that in 50 minutes while I'm also trying to teach this other content? How can I actually be a force in their life beyond, you know, trying to give them some better things to think about, some opportunities to expand their own vision of their reality. So, you know, that drove me away too. It's like I wanted to be not just more impactful on a global scale, but also on an individual scale. You know, I wanted to see that the time that I invest in a young person could lead to something and not just be my contribution along the assembly line. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Thank you for that answer. Totally understand. Our next question is, do you believe that there's one pathway to do social justice?
I can't hear you.
Oh, do you believe that there is one pathway to do social justice work that is most influential?
No, I think that white supremacy and colonialism and anti-blackness are so pervasive and they're so much a part of the fabric of every system that it's impossible for there to be one way.
Yeah.
Um, I think it's like martial arts. You know, there's a move, a counter move for every move.
Yeah.
So, and some of those moves you learn, and some of them you don't in a particular um, school of thought. And so you have to expand your schools of thought so that you can have more ways to defend yourself.
Yeah.
So, and you know, the other metaphor I would use is just you need a toolkit to exact justice in the world. And in the toolkit, there's all kinds of different tools. You know, they're not all the same tool. You can't use a hammer to put a screw in a wall. You know what I mean? So you need different tools to do different things. Like obviously, the voting is a tool, but it's not the answer. It's just a tool.
Yeah.
You know, marching is a tool. It's not the answer, but it's a tool. Running for office is not the answer, but it's a tool. You know, all these things are like ways to exact justice. So, in the same way, teaching and learning and activism is the same way. There's so many things to be active about. There's so many systems and forces in operation against our survival that we need as many tools as we could possibly learn how to use, you know, and hope that we'll have the right tool when we're confronted with whatever the system throws at us.
Yes, definitely. There's so many different branches. I feel like, like you said, I think like white supremacy is everywhere. You know what I mean? Colonialism, I think sometimes we think, like maybe it's just in America or something, but it's really everywhere. So, and everywhere and kind of everything. So it's just kind of like, you know, finding a way to, in every sort of way to fight that. Our next,
And also just remembering that we're everywhere too.
yeah,
Like everywhere white supremacy is, it's only there because it's trying to suppress somebody. Well, who's it trying to suppress? Us.
yeah,
So we're there too. It wouldn't be there if we weren't there, right? It's a system that's designed to um, regulate our minds. So we have to be present in order for that system to even operate. And sometimes I think we think from a sense of deficit, like
mhm,
we are victims. You know, there's so few of us. There's actually more of us than there are of these white supremacist crazy people,
yeah,
like actual white supremacists. Like there's people who believe in white supremacy. That's probably almost every person that I've ever met in my life, unfortunately, over the age of 12.
hmm
But but they're not all white supremacists. That's a different thing. You know, they may believe in white supremacy, but that doesn't make them white supremacists.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think it's on us to have the knowledge and information, pedagogy and practice and just ways to move people away from that thought process, to move them away from that mindset. And every time we do that is an act of resistance against white supremacy and against even the efforts of white supremacists. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah,
So yeah, I think that's an important distinction.
yes, definitely. Our next question is, throughout your career, how have you seen the arts be a center for healing and hope?
I wouldn't be who I am without the arts.
Mm-hmm.
So I grew up in the arts. That's what I grew up doing. That's what my family did. That's what my grandmother did. I don't distinguish that from life.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a hard question to answer
Like, I just,
because arts for me is not separate from any other aspect of what I am or what I do in
mhm,
that sense. Um, I think what informed my professional career was being a teacher, but what informed my teaching career was being an artist. So uh, I don't see them as separate. Everything that I've done, everything that I've been involved in, even as a high school teacher, was dependent on the arts.
mhm,
The only job I had that wasn't fully dependent on the arts was when I was executive director of Making Waves. And even then, I did what I could to bring the arts into the work that we were doing in
mhm,
whatever way I could. So yeah, I don't see that as a separate thing. So I think our healing, our sickness, our wellness, our pain, it's all in the arts. Like
mhm,
it's all there. It's all there. Our anger, our frustration, our sorrows, our joys, it's all there in the arts.
mhm.
Um, yeah, that's my answer.
Okay, got it. Yeah. We thank you for listening to part one of Our Justice Journey with Hodari Davis. To further listen to this discussion, feel free to visit part two.